My brother ripped my life's work off the walls of our family restaurant, called it clutter, and my father clapped. My mother just smiled that tight, pained smile of hers, the one that means, don't make a scene. So I didn't. I just nodded, excused myself, and went home. The next morning, I deleted the restaurant's website, its Instagram account with 80,000 followers, and every single digital photo I had ever taken for them over the last 15 years. By noon, their online reservation system was gone. By dinner, their top rating on Yelp had vanished. 2 days later, a food critic who was scheduled to review them couldn't find their address online and canceled. That's when my brother's frantic text came through. "What the hell did you do?" I was just getting started. Our family didn't just own a restaurant. We were the restaurant. Sorrento's. A corner spot in Boston's North End that my nonno carved out of nothing but flour, tomatoes, and sheer will. It wasn't just a business. It was our entire identity. The smell of garlic and simmering marinara wasn't just a scent. It was the air we breathed. For most of my life, my place in that world was clear. I was the keeper of the flame, the family historian. While my brother, Marco, was being groomed to take over the books and the business side, I was the one with the camera. From the time I was 14, I was the one capturing it all. The steam rising off a plate of nonna's gnocchi, the laughter lines around a regular customer's eyes, Pops, my father, flooring a countertop in a cloud of white dust. I wasn't a chef. I wasn't a manager. I was the storyteller. My photos weren't just pictures. They were the soul of Sorrento's. They covered every inch of the worn brick walls, framed in mismatched wood, each one a testament to our history. They were the first thing people saw when they walked in, and the last thing they saw when they left. I built the restaurant's website from scratch when I was in college, taught myself basic coding to make it perfect. I started the Instagram account, posting daily vignettes that made people feel like they were part of our family. We had food bloggers lining up, tourists making reservations months in advance, all because they saw a photo I took of my mother arranging basil leaves on a margarita pizza and felt something real. I never got a paycheck for any of it. It was just what I did for the family. My contribution. And for a long time I thought that was enough. The shift started slowly. Marco, fresh out of business school with a head full of slick, sterile ideas, began to see my work not as an asset, but as an obstacle. "This place is old, Ava," he'd say, waving a dismissive hand at the gallery of memories I'd built. "It's cluttered. We need to be sleek, modern, minimalist." He saw Sorrento's not as a legacy, but as a brand to be optimized. My father, who once told me my photos were the restaurant's heart, started to listen to Marco. The allure of higher profit margins and a feature in some glossy business magazine was intoxicating. He started looking at my photos differently, his eyes glossing over the history and seeing only clutter. My mother, as always, just wanted peace. "He has good ideas, tesoro," she'd murmur, avoiding my gaze. "Just hear him out." The breaking point was a dinner. Not just any dinner. Marco had invited a group of potential investors, local culinary influencers, and a few food critics for what he called the grand relaunch. I thought it was just a menu tasting. I spent a week taking new photos, capturing the vibrant colors of the new dishes he'd begrudgingly allowed the chefs to create. I was excited. I thought this was our chance to blend the old with the new. I walked in that night and felt a chill. The lighting was different, cold and white, instead of our usual warm glow. And the walls were bare. Not all of them, but there were large empty spaces where my favorite photos used to hang. My photo of Nonno, laughing as he taught me to knead dough, was gone. I found Marco by the bar schmoozing with a man in a shiny suit. "What happened to the walls?" I asked, my voice tight. He didn't even look at me, just clapped the investor on the back. "Just making some room for the future, sis. Streamlining." The knot in my stomach tightened. I took my seat at the family table, feeling like a ghost. Pops gave me a brief, almost apologetic glance before turning his full attention to the head investor. Mom was busy arranging and rearranging the silverware, her telltale sign of anxiety. After the main course, Marco stood up, tapped a glass for attention, and launched into his big speech. He talked about synergy, brand identity, and forward momentum. He spoke of Sorrento's as if it were a failing tech startup he was saving, not a 50-year-old institution. And then he gestured to a covered easel in the corner. "The past is a beautiful story," he said, his eyes sweeping the room but landing on me for a fraction of a second. "But a business can't live in a history book. It's time to look forward to a new Sorrento's." He pulled the cover off the easel. It was a poster, a sleek black and white stock photo of a fork twirling perfectly uniform spaghetti. Underneath, in a cold sans-serif font, was the word Sorrento's. A polite, confused applause rippled through the room. Then, Marco said the words that broke me. "To that end, we're clearing out the clutter, making way for a clean, modern aesthetic." And on cue, 2 waiters I'd never seen before walked over to the main wall, the heart of the restaurant, and began taking down my photos. My photos. The one of my parents on their wedding day, sharing a cannoli. The one of my brother and me as kids, covered in flour. They were careful, but it felt violent. They were taking down my life, my contribution, my soul, and stacking them in a dusty pile on the floor like old newspapers. I looked at my father. He was watching the investors, a hopeful, proud smile on his face, and then he started clapping. A slow, deliberate clap that said, "This is it. This is the future." My mother's eyes were filled with tears, but she smiled her tight smile and joined him. No one looked at me. In that moment, I wasn't a daughter or a sister. I was the clutter. I was the history book being closed for good. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. Something inside me went perfectly, terrifyingly still. I stood up, my chair making no sound on the thick rug. I walked out of the restaurant, past the pile of my discarded memories, and into the cool Boston night. The air had never felt so clean. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in front of my laptop, the glow of the screen illuminating my face in the dark. It was a strange kind of grief, cold and sharp. All the warmth I associated with Sorrento's, with my family, had been extinguished. It was replaced by a quiet, calculating clarity. For 15 years, I had poured my heart and soul into a digital ecosystem that propped up their entire modern business, and I had done it for free, for love. They didn't see it as work. They saw it as my duty, as air, invisible, essential, and utterly taken for granted until it's gone. My first target was the website, sorrentosboston.com. I had registered it myself back in 2008 with my own credit card. I'd renewed it every year since. It was legally, unequivocally mine. I logged into the domain registrar, my fingers moving with a precision that surprised me. I didn't have to think. I found the DNS settings, the place where you tell the domain name where to point. It was currently pointing to the beautiful, photo-rich website I had spent hundreds of hours designing and maintaining. I deleted the records. All of them. In their place, I created a simple text record. Then I went to the hosting account. Again, under my name and my credit card. And I clicked Cancel Subscription. A little pop-up asked, "Are you sure? This action is irreversible and will delete all files." I clicked yes. A wave of something that wasn't quite relief, but was definitely not regret, washed over me. The website was gone. The reservation system, integrated into the site, was gone. Next was Instagram. At Sorrento's North End. 80,000 followers. A curated gallery of nearly 3,000 photos and videos. A community I had built from the ground up. One hashtag at a time. I had nurtured that account like a garden, responding to comments, running contests, featuring photos from happy customers. Marco loved to boast about the follower count to his friends. He had no idea how to even log in. The password was a complex string of letters and numbers tied to an inside joke between me and my nonna. I logged in. I went to the settings. Account. Delete account. It asked for the password one last time. I typed it in, and with a final click, 15 years of visual history evaporated into the digital ether. Then came the archives. I had a massive cloud storage drive, backed up in 3 separate places, containing every single high-resolution photo I had ever taken for the restaurant. Tens of thousands of them. They were my life's work. They were also my intellectual property. I had never signed a work-for-hire agreement. I had never transferred copyright. I owned them, every last pixel. I spent the next hour meticulously deleting the shared folders I had given my father and Marco access to. Their link to the restaurant's visual soul was severed. All they had left were the low-resolution JPEGs I'd emailed them over the years, and the pile of framed prints on the restaurant floor. By sunrise, I was done. I closed my laptop and made myself a cup of tea. The silence in my apartment was absolute. I felt hollowed out, but also strangely light. I had just surgically removed myself from my family's narrative. The chaos wouldn't start right away. They wouldn't notice until they needed something. A customer trying to book a table online. A blogger trying to tag them. Marco wanting to show off the brand to a new contact. I knew it was coming. And for the first time in a very long time, I wasn't anxious. I was just waiting. The first tremor hit around 10 a.m. the next day. A text from Maria, the restaurant's daytime manager, and a friend. "Hey, Ava. Weird question. The website is down. It just says, 'This page is not active. Is the hosting bill due?' I texted back, 'I'm not sure. I canceled my account.' Her reply was a series of question marks. I didn't elaborate. An hour later, a second text from her. 'The phones are going crazy. People can't find the reservation link. Do you know who handles the domain now?' I replied, 'I do. It's not pointed anywhere at the moment.' Silence. She knew better than to push. The real explosion happened that night. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. It was Marco. Then it buzzed again and again. He called 4 times in a row before the text started. Where is the website? The Instagram is gone. The whole thing. WTF. People are posting on Yelp and Google asking if we closed down. Fix this. I swear to God, Ava, if this is some kind of stunt because you were emotional last night, you're taking it too far. This is my career. This is Dad's legacy. Put it back. Now. I read the texts, my face impassive. I watched the words escalate from confusion to rage to threats. He wasn't asking if I was okay. He wasn't apologizing. He was commanding. He still saw me as the family's IT department, a functionary who was malfunctioning. The family group chat, which had been silent since the dinner, lit up. My mother. Marco, what's wrong? Why is everyone so upset? My father. Ava, your brother is saying, the website is broken. Please, handle it. Handle it. Not what happened. Not, can we talk? Just a directive. I powered my phone off and put it in a drawer. The silence was bliss. The next day, I got an email from the food critic, a woman I admired immensely, whose positive review could have secured Marco's new vision for Sorrento's. Her assistant wrote that Ms. Albright was scheduled for her 7 p.m. reservation, but couldn't confirm the restaurant's location or details as their website, and social media seemed to be offline, and the phone line was perpetually busy. As such, they were canceling the review visit. I took a screenshot of the email, saved it to a new folder on my desktop, labeled Consequences, and then deleted the email. That evening, I turned my phone back on. There were 27 missed calls from Marco and my father, and 1 voicemail from my mother. Her voice was trembling. Ava, I don't understand what's happening. Your father he is so angry. Marco is saying you've ruined everything. Please, tesoro, whatever this is, just stop. Just make it go back to the way it was. We're family. This isn't us. But she was wrong. This was exactly us. This was the culmination of years of them taking and me giving. The only difference was that now I had stopped giving, and they were finally realizing they had no idea how to take from an empty well. They thought I had taken something from them. They hadn't realized yet that all I did was take myself back. This wasn't a sudden act of rebellion. It was a debt coming due. The foundation for this quiet revolution was laid years ago, on a rainy Tuesday when I was 17. I remember the day with perfect, painful clarity. I had just won the Boston Globe's annual high school photography competition. It wasn't a small thing. It came with a scholarship, a gallery showing, and my photo printed in the Sunday paper. The photo was of my nonna, her hands wrinkled and dusted with flour, shaping orecchiette pasta. It was a photo full of love and heritage. I ran into the restaurant, clutching the award letter, my heart threatening to beat out of my chest. My dad was behind the counter, tasting a sauce. Marco, who was home from his first year at college, was telling him about some brilliant marketing idea he'd had for his economics class. They both looked up as I burst in, breathless with my news. I won! I won the Globe competition, I said, holding out the letter. My dad took it, glanced at it, and a smile touched his lips. Ah, that's nice, sweetheart. Very nice. He handed it back and turned to my mom. "Isabella, your daughter won a photo contest." Then he dipped his spoon back into the sauce. "Needs more salt." Marco laughed. Not a mean laugh, just an utterly dismissive one. He picked up the letter and scanned it. "Hey, that's cool. $1,000 scholarship? Almost enough to buy a textbook." He tossed it onto the counter. "When you're a famous photographer, you can take pictures of the Michelin star restaurant I'm going to run." He winked, as if he were letting me in on a great future he was building for both of us. But what I heard was, "Your achievement is cute. My ambition is real." I stood there, the joy draining out of me like water from a sieve. I had just achieved the biggest thing in my young life, and to them, it was a footnote. A nice hobby that might one day be useful to my brother's far more important dreams. My mom was the only one who hugged me. "Oh, amore, that's wonderful," she whispered, her eyes darting towards my father, already willing me not to be disappointed. "We'll frame the article." They never did. The letter ended up in a shoebox, and the topic was never brought up again. That was the day I learned my passion had a ceiling in my family. It was acceptable and praised as long as it served them, as long as it stayed in its lane, as a charming, supportive hobby. The moment it asked to be seen as something valuable on its own, it became an inconvenience. So when I started building the Sorrento's website, when I launched the Instagram, when I spent weekends and holidays cataloging photos, instead of going out with friends, a part of me was still that 17-year-old girl trying to prove them wrong. I thought if I made my hobby so indispensable to the family business, they would have to see its worth. I thought if I built them an empire of followers and a reservation book full of names, they would finally say, "You did this. This value. You created it." I was wrong. The more indispensable I became, the more invisible my work was. It just merged into the background hum of the restaurant. It became part of the foundation. And nobody ever looks at the foundation until the walls start to crack. The night Marco unveiled that soulless stock photo, it was the same dismissal, just on a grander scale. He wasn't just tossing my award letter on the counter. He was tossing my entire professional contribution into a pile on the floor. And my father wasn't just turning back to his sauce. He was leading the applause. They hadn't changed. I had. I had finally stopped waiting for their validation. The moment my dad's hands came together in that slow, proud clap for the erasure of my work, the 17-year-old girl inside me finally stood up, dusted herself off, and walked out the door. She was done trying to prove anything. She was ready to hone her work, even if it meant taking it all away. This wasn't revenge. It was a resignation. I was quitting the role of the family's resident artist, a position I had held for free for far too long. A week after my digital exodus, my father called me from a blocked number. I almost didn't answer, but a morbid curiosity won out. I picked up and said nothing. "Ava," he said. His voice was strained, stripped of its usual booming confidence. It was the voice he used when a supplier had shorted him on tomatoes, a mix of weary and angry. "You need to come down to the restaurant. We need to talk. I'm listening," I said, my voice as calm and flat as a frozen lake. "This isn't a phone call conversation. This is family business. You come here, to my house, and we will sort this out." My house, he called it, the restaurant. "There's nothing to sort out, Pops," I said, using the old nickname. It felt strange on my tongue. You and Marco wanted a new modern aesthetic. Clean walls. I just extended that to the digital space. You wanted to move forward from the past, so I removed it. There was a long, heavy silence on the other end of the line. I could hear him breathing, a ragged sound. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" he finally growled. "The phone hasn't stopped ringing with cancellations. Maria had to handwrite a wait list on a notepad last night, like it's 1985. A notepad. Our Yelp page is full of one-star reviews from people who think we're out of business. Marco's investors are getting cold feet. You didn't just remove some pictures, Ava. You took a sledgehammer to my life's work. To your nonno's legacy. That was the line. That was the one that made my blood run cold." "My nonno's legacy?" I repeated, my voice dangerously quiet. "Nonno's legacy was in those photos. It was in the stories I told. It was in the community I built online that brought people to your door. You're the one who called it clutter and applauded while it was being thrown on the floor. You can't have it both ways, Pops. You can't throw the heart away and then get angry when the body starts to die." "That is ridiculous," he sputtered. "They are just photos. You are being a dramatic, emotional child over a few pictures." "Am I?" I asked. "Let's talk specifics then. Are you aware that the domain name sorrentosboston.com is registered in my name, with my personal funds? That the Instagram account, under intellectual property law, constituted a curated creative work to which I hold the copyright? That every single photograph you have used for marketing, press, and promotion for the last 15 years is my legal property, and you have never once paid me a licensing fee?" The silence this time was deafening. He had no idea. They had never once considered the legal or financial reality of my work. It was just Ava's thing. "What do you want?" he finally whispered, his voice defeated. "Is this about money? You want me to pay you? Fine. How much?" And that was the saddest part of all. He thought he could buy me. He thought he could write a check, and I would come back and fix it all, restore the digital world I had built, and we could all pretend this never happened. "I want nothing from you, Pops," I said, and the finality in my own voice surprised me. "I don't want your money. I just want my work to be mine. It seems you don't have a use for it anymore, so I've taken it back. The rest is your problem to solve. You have Marco for that, right? The business genius. I'm sure he has a plan." I hung up before he could respond. I leaned my head against the cool glass of my window, looking down at the street below. I didn't feel victorious. I felt empty. The confrontation I had dreaded for a week was over, and it hadn't solved a thing. It had just confirmed what I already knew. They saw my value, only in the context of their own need. He hadn't called to apologize. He had called for a repairman. And when he found out the repairman had quit, he tried to pay her to come back. He never once considered that the repairman was his daughter, and that she was irrevocably broken. The fallout was a slow, cascading series of failures for them. Marco, in a desperate attempt to regain a digital footing, launched a new Instagram account, @TheNewSorrentos. He posted the sterile stock photo of spaghetti. It got 12 likes, 3 of them from his own dummy accounts. He tried to start a new website on some cheap template-based service. It looked amateurish and was riddled with typos. Without my photos, all he had were blurry cell phone pictures that made the food look greasy. and unappetizing. The sleek, modern vision he'd sold to the investors looked, in practice, like a cheap knockoff. The extended family, a sprawling web of aunts, uncles, and cousins, started to talk. At first, the narrative, spun by my father, was that I'd had some kind of mental breakdown, that I'd gone crazy and destroyed the family business out of spite. My Aunt Sophia, my mother's younger sister, called me. She was always the sharpest of the bunch. "Isabella is a wreck," she said, skipping the pleasantries. "Leo is telling everyone you've lost your mind. What really happened, Ava?" I told her everything. From the dinner, to the applause, to the phone call. I told her about the photo contest when I was 17. I didn't cry. I just stated the facts. When I was done, Sophia was quiet for a long moment. Then she sighed. "Dio mio. Of course. Leo always saw that boy as the sun, and you as a planet orbiting him. I'm so sorry, cara. They were fools. They took your light for granted, and now they're shocked it's dark." Her validation was a balm on a wound I didn't know was still so raw. It turned out she wasn't the only one who felt that way. A few days later, my cousin Matteo, who ran a bakery a few blocks from Sorrento's, texted me. "Heard about the digital implosion. Marco came in here yesterday, complaining for an hour. Just wanted to say, it's about time someone stood up to them." Slowly, the messages trickled in. Cousins and old family friends who had watched the dynamic for years, who had seen my work and seen how it was dismissed, were quietly choosing a side. Not by condemning my parents, but by reaching out to me. The most surprising development was my younger cousin, Gabriela. She was in culinary school, a brilliant creative pastry chef whom my father had refused to hire because he said Sorrento's was not a dessert place. She called me, her voice fizzing with an idea. "Ava, I know this is crazy timing, but I have a concept for a pop-up. A weekend dessert bar. I have the recipes, but I have no idea how to market it. No idea how to make it look magical, like you did for Sorrento's." For the first time in weeks, I felt a spark. Not the fire of anger, but the flicker of creation. "Tell me more," I said. We talked for 2 hours. Her ideas were incredible. A fusion of old-world Italian techniques with modern flavors. As she spoke, I could see the photos in my head. The glossy sheen on a chocolate glaze, the delicate architecture of a layered pastry, the joy on a customer's face as they took the first bite. All the creative energy I had poured into Sorrento's had a new place to go. A place where it would be the main event, not the background scenery. We decided to partner up. I would handle all the branding, the photography, the social media. We would be a team, 50-50 partners. I spent the next week building her a brand from scratch. A beautiful, minimalist website, using my photos, of course. An Instagram account that was vibrant and full of personality. A simple online ordering system. We called it Dolce, the Italian word for sweet. Within 3 days of launching the Instagram page, we had 2,000 followers. Food bloggers who had been snubbed by Marco's new regime at Sorrento's were clamoring to get a preview. I didn't do it to spite my family. I did it because it's who I am. I'm a builder, a storyteller. My father and brother had tried to take that away from me, to reduce my talent to clutter. But talent is a living thing. If you try to bury it, it will just grow somewhere else. And as I watched the follower count for Dolce climb, as I booked photo shoots with Gabriella, her face alight with passion, I realized my work was never about Sorrento's. It was about capturing love and creating connection. Sorrento's had just been the vessel, and now that the vessel was broken, I was finally free to pour my work into something that would hold it with care. Something that saw it not as a means to an end, but as the beautiful, delicious end itself. The first Dolce pop-up was a staggering success. We sold out in 3 hours. The line stretched down the block. I was there with my camera, of course, but I wasn't hiding in the background. I was in the middle of it all, capturing the energy, talking to customers, a genuine smile on my face. Gabriella was a star, her passion infectious. I looked at the joy we had created, this living, breathing thing, born from a tiny idea and a whole lot of mutual respect, and I felt a sense of peace that Sorrento's had never given me. News travels fast in the North End. My father heard about the pop-up. Marco saw the glowing posts from food critics, the same critics he had tried to woo. According to Aunt Sophia, the mood at Sorrento's was grim. Their business was down nearly 40%. The investors had officially pulled out. Marco blamed the economy, the changing tastes of diners, everything but his own arrogance. My father had apparently retreated into a stony silence, spending most of his days in the back office, looking at old, pre-Marco spreadsheets. One evening, my mother showed up at my apartment door, unannounced. She looked older than I'd ever seen her, her shoulders slumped, the permanent pained smile gone, replaced by a deep, etched sadness. She was holding a Tupperware container, my favorite, lasagna, peace offering. "Can I come in?" she asked, her voice raspy. I hesitated, then stepped aside. She put the lasagna on my kitchen counter and just stood there, wringing her hands. "Your father, he's not well, Ava. He doesn't talk. He just sits. The restaurant, it feels like a tomb." "I'm sorry to hear that, Mom," I said, and I meant it. I didn't want him to suffer. I just wanted him to see. This thing with Gabriella," she continued, her voice trembling. "It's all anyone talks about. Her success. Your beautiful pictures. Leo sees it as a betrayal. He said you're trying to destroy him, to build your own kingdom on the ruins of his." I sighed. "That's not what this is. You know it's not." "He doesn't," she cried, her voice finally breaking. "He's a proud man, Ava. You broke his pride. He will never, ever forgive you for this. Can't you see that? Can't you just stop? Let it go? Come back? We can fix this. All of us. Together. Like a family." There it was again. That plea to go back. To erase the truth. To smooth things over for the sake of a hollow peace. I looked at my mother. At this woman who had spent her entire life absorbing the blows meant for others. And I felt a wave of pity, but not enough to change my mind. "There's nothing to go back to, Mom," I said softly. "You guys broke it. Remember? I'm not the one who stood up and called my life's work clutter. I'm not the one who clapped. I'm not the one who stayed silent." Her face crumpled. "But he's your father, and I am your daughter," I replied, my voice gaining strength. "And for the first time in my life, I'm treating my own work with the same value he has always treated his. Is that so wrong?" She had no answer. She just picked up her purse, gave the lasagna a sad look, and walked out the door. As I watched her go, I realized the final thread had been cut. My father's pride, my brother's ambition, my mother's desire for peace. They were a cage I had lived in my whole life. And I had finally flown free. The kingdom I was building wasn't on the ruins of his. It was on a foundation of my own making, built with respect, passion, and a partnership that was truly equal. And it was a kingdom where I was not just the storyteller, but also the queen. 6 months passed. 6 months of quiet, steady work. Dolce wasn't a pop-up anymore. Gabriella and I, fueled by our initial success and a small business loan we secured on the strength of our business plan and stellar sales data, signed a lease on a small storefront, just a few streets away from Sorrento's. It was a beautiful space with huge windows, and I filled the walls with my photography. This time, photos of Gabriella's creations, of our happy customers, of us, 2 cousins building something new together. We were partners, in every sense of the word. We made decisions together. We shared the profits equally. And we celebrated every tiny victory. Jake, a friend of ours who was a carpenter, built our counter out of reclaimed wood. My Aunt Sophia, who had a gift for cultivating herbs, supplied us with fresh mint and basil from her garden. Matteo, from the bakery down the street, sent us his leftover bread, which Gabriella turned into the most incredible bread pudding. A new family was forming around us, one built not on obligation and history, but on mutual support and shared passion. My phone no longer buzzed with angry demands, but with encouraging texts and exciting new ideas. Meanwhile, the slow decay of Sorrento's became the North End's saddest gossip. Marco, humbled and out of ideas, had tried to rehire the old head chef he had forced out. The chef, who was now happily working at a rival restaurant, politely declined. In a last-ditch effort, Marco had brought back some of the old menu items, but the magic was gone. Without the story, without the soul that my photos and online presence had provided, it was just another mediocre Italian restaurant in a neighborhood full of great ones. The walls were still mostly bare, punctuated by a few of Marco's generic stock photos. It felt, as my mother had said, like a tomb. One afternoon, I was walking past Sorrento's on my way to the market. I hadn't planned to, but my route took me right by the front window. I saw my father standing inside, looking out. He saw me. Our eyes met for a long moment through the thick glass. He looked tired, defeated. The booming patriarch was gone, replaced by a frail old man lost in the wreckage of his own pride. He didn't glower. He didn't look angry. He just looked sad. For a fleeting second, he raised his hand, a small hesitant gesture. It wasn't a wave, more like a twitch, a question, an aborted attempt at connection. I didn't smile. I didn't scowl. I just held his gaze for a second longer, gave a single, almost imperceptible nod, and kept walking. That nod wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't an invitation. It was an acknowledgement of the shared history, the shared pain, and the vast, unbridgeable distance that now lay between us. I was no longer angry. The fire had burned out, leaving behind not ash, but fertile ground. I was too busy building my own garden to waste time throwing stones at his. The final chapter of Sorrento's came not with a bang, but with a quiet, laminated sign taped to the front door. "Closed for renovations," it read. But everyone knew what it meant. It was the restaurant world's equivalent of going to live on a farm. A week later, A for lease sign went up in the window. The legacy was over. I learned a powerful lesson through all of this. Your value isn't determined by the people who are supposed to love you the most. It's determined by you. You have to be the one to recognize your own worth, to put a price on your contributions, even when those contributions are made of intangible things like love, time, and talent. Family can be the warmest place on earth, but it can also be a cage gilded with obligation and guilt. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to find the key, unlock the door, and walk away. Not in a storm of anger, but in the quiet dignity of self-worth. You don't have to burn the bridge. Sometimes you just have to stop being the only one holding it up. My life is different now. It's quieter, but it's more joyful. It's smaller in some ways, but infinitely larger in others. I'm building a new legacy, one photo at a time, one partnership at a time, on my own terms. I haven't spoken to my father or brother since I saw him through the window. My mother sends me texts on my birthday and holidays. Simple messages of love that are heavy with all the things she can't say. I reply with the same. It's a fragile truce, a relationship held at arm's length, but it's honest. And honestly, it's all I can give right now. Maybe one day, that will change. But I'm not waiting for it. I'm too busy living. So I want to ask you all, have you ever poured your heart and soul into something? A family, a job, a relationship, only to have your contributions dismissed or taken for granted? What was the moment you realized your work was being devalued? The world is full of people who will gladly accept your free labor, your emotional support, your creative energy, and call it love or duty. The hardest and most important thing you can do is to be the first person to recognize your own value. Let me know your story in the comments below. I read every one. It's important for us to share these stories, to know we're not alone in drawing these lines. Thank you for listening, and please, don't ever let anyone call your life's work clutter.